Let's just picture this for a second. It's the year 2026. Oil fields are literally burning. Explosions are rocking Tehran, Israeli Iron Dome interceptors are just lighting up the night sky, and US aircraft carriers are surging straight into the Persian Gulf. All over the globe, we're seeing massive crowds protesting, while the United Nations is locked in these frantic, round-the-clock emergency sessions. You know, for decades, the international community feared one very specific geopolitical nightmare above all others, right? A direct, kinetic collision between the United States, Israel, and Iran. So, in this explainer, we're going to unpack this terrifying hypothetical scenario of 2026, where a decades-long shadow war basically erupted into a devastating reality.
Was this war ever truly about nuclear weapons, or about reshaping the balance of global power? I really want you to keep that question right at the front of your mind as we go through today's analysis. Because as the missiles flew and the headlines flashed, this was the central mystery that emerged. We are looking at a conflict with stakes so absolutely massive, it threatens to completely rewrite the global order as we know it.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to follow an escalation ladder roadmap today. First, we'll look at the roots of the conflict, then Operation Lion's Roar, followed by Iran strikes back, how global powers take sides, the diplomatic standoff, and finally, what happens next. Section 1. Roots of the conflict. Let's rewind a bit and establish the historical baseline before things blew up. Because, for more than 40 years, this has been a highly lethal shadow war. Tracing all the way back to 1979, the conflict has been defined by covert assassinations, cyber sabotage, and these complex proxy battles involving groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. We sort of know this history, but to really understand the power keg neutrally, we have to recognize the deeply entrenched perspectives here. On one hand, Washington viewed Tehran as the world's leading sponsor of anti-Western militancy, and frankly, a severe nuclear threat. On the flip side, Iran saw America and Israel as the architects of regional domination, actively trying to destroy them. So by early 2026, when negotiations completely failed, that was the final spark.
Which brings us to Section 2, Operation Lion's Roar, the ultimate catalyst event.
Now, what's really interesting here is this highly specific date, February 28th, 2026. This was the exact moment those decades of shadow warfare just evaporated. They were replaced almost instantly by a direct kinetic collision. American and Israeli forces launched what was essentially one of the most massive coordinated air campaigns in modern regional history, striking directly at the heart of Iran. 900. Just let that staggering number land with you for a second. We are talking about nearly 900 coordinated strikes executed in just a matter of hours. The skies over Tehran literally burned as Iranian military command structures collapsed under the sheer weight of the bombardment. And the ultimate shockwave of the whole operation? Well, within hours of the skies clearing, Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei was reported dead.
But Iran didn't just fold. That brings us to Section 3, Iran strikes back.
Because Tehran absolutely did not collapse. Instead, they unleashed this massive multi-front retaliatory shockwave. They launched missiles and drones at US bases and regional infrastructure. They activated their proxies to basically expand the chaos and unleashed their own devastating cyber campaigns. But the most critical move? Threatening the Strait of Hormuz. Turning the main artery of global oil into a literal battlefield was a highly calculated move. It was designed to ensure that everyone watching this explainer right now would feel the massive impact right at the gas pump as global inflation just spiked through the roof.
And as those oil markets panicked, we hit Section 4, Global Powers Take Sides.
And this brilliantly illustrates how during a major crisis, sheer self-interest just completely takes over. Let's look at this breakdown. Russia and China, they publicly condemned the escalation, sure, but they avoided direct confrontation with Washington. However, analysts widely suspect they quietly provided a ton of tech and intel backing to Iran just to weaken US influence. Meanwhile, the Gulf states were absolutely terrified of a total regional collapse. Saudi Arabia reportedly went so far as to deny the US access to its bases for expanded operations. Over in Europe, they were panicking over impending energy and refugee crises, demanding an immediate ceasefire. And then, surprisingly enough, Pakistan stepped right into the void to mediate diplomatic discussions between Tehran and Washington. It's like a giant geopolitical chess game where everyone acted purely for their own strategic survival. Section 5. The Diplomatic Standoff. Moving us into the very precarious talks of May 2026.
So the crucial point here is really understanding the vast canyon between these two negotiating tables. On one side, Iran's position remains fiercely defiant. They're declaring their nuclear program as strictly civilian. They flat out refuse to surrender their strategic deterrence, actually claiming their military capability was rebuilt during the pause.
And they are demanding immediate sanctions relief with strict warnings against any renewed attacks. Now, on the other side, you have the United States under the Trump administration. They are balancing this incredibly delicate tightrope of maximum pressure and controlled diplomacy. The US is hyper-focused on ending uranium enrichment entirely, restricting Iranian missiles, and halting any proxy expansion. So they're just constantly alternating between threats of overwhelming force and promises of peace.
But is this ceasefire actually peace? That's Section 6. What happens next?
Let's move to how this builds, because analysts are warning that this diplomatic pause is really just a cover to shift the battlefield. Step 1. A heavy return to the shadows, with continued cyber warfare and really intense intelligence operations. Step 2. Grinding economic blockades designed to apply maximum pressure. And Step 3. An expansion of asymmetric proxy conflicts stretching across Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. So the open airstrikes might pause for a bit, but those shadow tactics, they are absolutely expanding. Which leaves us with this final, pretty chilling thought. The events of 2026 prove that this is so much more than a regional conflict. It's a fundamental struggle over power, ideology, energy, and technology. So, does this fragile ceasefire mark the beginning of a lasting peace? Or was Operation Lion's Roar really just the opening chapter of a far larger, far more devastating global confrontation? The future world order literally hangs in the balance. And honestly, what happens next remains entirely uncertain. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.